The trucks grind to a halt, brakes shrieking like iron claws on stone. Dust rises in choking clouds, stinging their eyes, coating their tongues with grit. They are ordered down, boots thudding against the hard-packed earth, shoulders hunched against the rifles that trace their every move. Fences loom in front of them, wire curling like thorns, barracks lined in stiff rows. The air hums with silence, broken only by the occasional barked order in English, clipped and cold. They march forward, their steps heavy, their stomachs raw from hunger, their minds braced for humiliation. Everything they have been told whispers the same truth: here, inside the wire, there will be cruelty. But then, something unexpected. Nailed to a post near the guardhouse is a sheet of paper, edges curling in the wind. At first, no one cares. Notices usually mean rules, punishments, restrictions. But the translation scrawled in rough German makes them freeze. The words are blunt, almost absurd: prisoners who work will be paid wages. Wages. Their jaws tighten. They glance at one another, suspicion flashing in their eyes. They have crossed an ocean in chains, they have been told they are animals in the hands of a merciless enemy, and now the enemy claims they will earn money? The paper flaps in the wind, its black letters stubborn and still. The rumor spreads like fire through dry grass. By the time darkness falls and the barracks creak under the weight of restless men, everyone has heard. Wages. They whisper the word as if testing it, some laughing bitterly, others shaking their heads. They mutter that it must be a trick, another cruel game to break them from the inside. They want us to believe we are free, someone spits. Another insists the wages will be worthless scraps, paper notes no shop will ever honor. But not all dismiss it. In the silence after laughter dies, thoughts creep in that they do not admit aloud. A cigarette, maybe. Soap. A razor. The smallest choices that mean the difference between a prisoner and a man. Quick break: if you're watching this and still here, you're one of the few who truly care about stories buried under dust. Most scroll past. If you're not, hit subscribe right now, so this part of history isn't forgotten. At dawn, the guardhouse door swings open. A soldier steps out, clipboard under his arm, his face expressionless. He calls numbers. They file forward, rigid, jaws set, expecting the laughter, the insult, the trap. But the guard merely ticks off names, his pen scratching, his eyes bored. Groups are split: orchard, kitchen, woodpile. Work details, he says flatly, with pay according to the posted schedule. They stare, searching for a smirk, for a twist, but he offers nothing. It is routine, as if they are employees clocking into a shift. They shuffle away, more unsettled by his indifference than they would have been by cruelty. The orchard detail reaches rows of trees, branches heavy with fruit. They hesitate, uncertain whether to pick or to wait for punishment. The sergeant shrugs and waves them forward. They begin slowly, fingers brushing smooth skins, the scent of apples sharp in the morning air. They fill baskets until their arms ache and sweat streaks through layers of grime. When the day ends, they are marched back to the barracks, not to ridicule, but to envelopes waiting on their bunks. Thin, brown envelopes stamped with their names. Coins clink inside. Real coins, stamped with eagles and numbers. They sit in stunned silence, the sound of metal rolling against wood louder than any shout. Some clutch the envelopes to their chests, afraid they will be seized back at any moment. Others tear them open, spilling the coins into trembling hands, counting and recounting. The weight is undeniable. They mutter in disbelief: they are paying us. The Americans are paying prisoners. That night, the barracks hum with questions. Why would the enemy do this? What hidden chain comes with this money? Some cling to fury, declaring they will never spend a single coin. Others lie awake, staring at the ceiling, their fingers wrapped tight around the envelopes. The thought gnaws at them: to walk into the camp canteen, to choose soap, a tin of peaches, a deck of cards, not because they are given, but because they are earned. It feels dangerous even to imagine. Yet the possibility hangs there, like the faint glow of the bulbs overhead, fragile, flickering, but real. They wake to another day, the envelopes tucked under thin pillows, coins warm with their body heat. Outside, the guards patrol with rifles hanging loose, their faces blank. Inside, men press metal against their palms as if testing whether it will vanish. They are prisoners. They are enemies. Yet here, within barbed wire, they are being offered wages. It makes no sense. And because it makes no sense, it feels even more powerful. And here's where I pause and ask you, if this revelation already shocked you, what about the details no one talks about? If you want those uncovered truths, subscribe now before this story fades into the background noise. Because the majority won't. They'll watch in silence and walk away. Don't be the majority. Later, as the orchard detail files past guards, one man catches a glimpse of the camp store. Shelves lined with soap, paper, canned goods. The sight burns into their minds, things that could be theirs if the promise holds. Pride wars with longing, suspicion battles with hunger. They were taught to believe the enemy was merciless, and yet the enemy is paying them wages. The contradiction digs deep, cutting through layers of propaganda like a knife through paper. That night, they dream of coins rattling in their fists, of envelopes stacked in rows, of the strange taste of freedom measured not in liberty, but in dimes and nickels. They wake uncertain if it is hope or humiliation that weighs heavier. But they know one thing: captivity has changed. Behind wire, under guard, they have been handed something unthinkable, a wage. And once touched, that truth cannot be untouched. The first envelopes do not stay hidden for long. Curiosity gnaws at them more than hunger. They step cautiously toward the canteen, coins sweating in their palms, afraid the moment will collapse like smoke when they cross the threshold. The guard at the door hardly looks at them. He checks the tally, waves them through. Inside, the air carries a smell they had forgotten: soap, tobacco, canned fruit, ink from fresh stationery. Rows of shelves stand in tidy order, and behind the counter a clerk waits with the indifference of a man who has done this 1,000 times. They freeze, overwhelmed. No one shouts. No one mocks. Instead, a chalkboard lists prices: soap, 2 coins, razor, 3, a tin of peaches, 4, paper and envelopes, 1. The clerk points at the board and shrugs, as if to say, choose. The word burns hotter than any rifle barrel. Choose. For months they have moved at the snap of commands, stripped of every decision. Now, behind barbed wire, the enemy demands a choice. A man steps forward, places coins on the counter with a trembling hand. The clerk counts, nods, and slides a bar of soap across the wood. It is wrapped in thin paper, smelling faintly of lavender. The man stares at it, hardly breathing. Soap. Not rationed, not forced into his palm, purchased. Earned. He clutches it like treasure, walks away in silence, and the line inches forward. One by one, they test the strange freedom. A tin of fruit. A cigarette. A sheet of paper to write a letter home. Each transaction feels unreal, a dream that might vanish if stared at too long. The coins slip from their hands reluctantly, each clink against the counter echoing louder than a gunshot. And yet, when the items slide across, the weight of ownership steadies them. For the first time since capture, something is theirs. Whispers spread in the barracks that night. Cigarettes pass hand to hand, traded for razor blades. Soap is split into chunks, shared and sold. Envelopes change owners in exchange for favors. The camp begins to hum with a strange new rhythm, the rhythm of a marketplace. A system is being born, quiet and unplanned, fueled by nickels and dimes. Let me stop here. If you're still listening, you're not the kind of person who walks past history without feeling it. That already makes you rare. Prove it, subscribe. Because stories like this are why most never understand the war beyond the battles. In days, the canteen transforms from a room with shelves to the heart of the camp. They gather outside its door, debating prices, whispering rumors of what will arrive next. Some save their wages in secret, coins stacked beneath mattresses. Others spend recklessly, chasing the taste of peaches or the scratch of tobacco in their throats. The economy grows like a living thing, pulsing through the barracks. Even men who once sneered at the idea of spending enemy money find themselves drawn to the shelves. Choice changes them. They begin to talk less of escape and more of what they will buy next week. Pride no longer feeds them, the canteen does. They trade, barter, scribble IOUs on scraps of paper. A cigarette becomes as valuable as a day's work. Soap becomes a symbol of dignity, a ticket to wash the grime of war from their skin. The enemy has not loosened the barbed wire, yet inside it they feel something shift, an illusion of normal life. But illusions carry weight. One evening, a fight breaks out in the corner of the barracks. Two men wrestle, fists swinging, until guards intervene. The cause is not ideology, not politics, not even a grudge. It is over a single coin. A single coin that meant a letter home, or a bar of soap, or a cigarette that could carry them through a night of silence. The guards drag them apart, indifferent, but the rest of the men sit stunned. The realization settles in, coins now rule them more than hunger or hate. Still, they cannot let it go. They speak of the canteen as if it is a city square. They tell each other what to buy, what to avoid, how to stretch the meager wages. Some laugh bitterly, pointing out that they fight for coins that buy trinkets while their families starve in bombed-out cities. Others reply that even trinkets are proof they are still men, not ghosts behind wire. And here's where I have to say it, this is why you need to comment. Drop "I'm here" below. Because every algorithm buries these chapters of history unless people push back. Don't let this vanish into silence. Weeks pass, and the system becomes routine. Payday arrives, coins clink, the canteen hums. Men who once walked like shadows now argue over prices, compare purchases, save scraps of paper for letters. The simple act of buying a thing becomes rebellion against despair. They still hate their captors. They still dream of home. But every transaction carves a small pocket of control in a world designed to strip it away. At night, by the dim glow of a bulb, they spread their purchases on bunks: soap, cigarettes, letters, razors. Ordinary objects, yet extraordinary here. They pass them hand to hand, boasting, trading, laughing with a sharpness that cuts through gloom. The camp still holds them, fences still bind them, guards still watch. But within those fences, within those rules, they have discovered an economy, a fragile, flickering illusion of life that feels more human than anything they have known since capture. The envelopes will come again. The coins will clink again. And each time, the barbed wire will seem a little less absolute. The Americans may not realize it, but with every payday, they have given the prisoners something more dangerous than food or shelter. They have given them choice. And choice, even when measured in nickels, is a seed that does not die easily. The camp is no longer silent in the mornings. When the bugle cuts through the mist, they rise not only because the guards demand it, but because there is something to wake for. The barracks echo with the sound of boots lacing, belts buckled, shirts tucked with a care that seemed pointless before. Soap and razors bought with wages change the air itself, no longer a sour weight of unwashed bodies, but a faint sharpness, the sting of cleanliness. The guards notice it too, though they do not speak. Work details march out with straighter backs. Not because the barbed wire has loosened, but because effort now leaves a trace behind: coins, envelopes, choices. Each swing of an axe, each crate lifted, is no longer swallowed by nothingness. It converts into something measurable, something that rattles in a pocket. And dignity, once stripped from them, seeps back with each small transaction. At meals, They line up with trays, the same watery stew, the same bread. But alongside the trays are murmured conversations of what will be purchased next week, who owes what to whom, which item will arrive in the canteen. A parallel life begins to run beneath the wire, invisible yet undeniable. Yet the paradox eats at them. These wages, this routine of paydays and choices, come from the enemy. Every envelope is signed by hands they were trained to hate. Every coin stamped with symbols of a nation that bombed their cities. Pride gnaws at them. Some refuse to spend, hiding coins in mattresses as if saving their dignity inside the thin ticking. But even they cannot deny the weight. Metal presses against their ribs when they lie down, reminding them, they have been paid. Pause. Most people would never imagine that wages could reshape a prison camp more than chains or rifles. If you're still here, you're not most. Subscribe now, because these are the parts of history textbooks bury in footnotes, if they mention them at all. Discipline shifts. The guards notice fewer fights. Tempers that once flared in silence now burn off in whispered trades and IOUs. Men who once scowled at every order begin to pace themselves, working not for the enemy's approval but for the promise of pay. They do not admit it, not even to themselves, but they carry themselves differently. Shoulders squared, shirts cleaner, eyes less hollow. The first time a Red Cross official arrives, he notes the change immediately. His clipboard lists health reports and ration counts, but his eyes linger on something else. The prisoners look like workers, not captives. They greet him without slouching, their voices steadier. It is not freedom, not even close, but dignity wears the face of normalcy. And normalcy, inside wire, feels like rebellion. Still, suspicion lingers like smoke. They whisper at night that the Americans must have a reason beyond rules. It is to make us tame, one says, his voice sharp in the dark. They want us docile, grateful. Heads nod, yet no one returns the envelopes. No one throws away the coins. The very men who doubt the most are the ones whose hands tremble most on payday. The dignity is fragile. They learn quickly how easily it can be bruised. A man late to roll call loses a day's wages. Another caught hoarding cigarettes has his pay withheld for a week. The punishments sting not because of pain, but because of lost choice. It is a new kind of control, quieter than chains, sharper than rifles. They know it, but they cannot stop themselves from chasing the pay all the same. In the barracks, paydays carve new rituals. Men sit at bunks with envelopes open, coins spread in neat rows, counting silently, lips moving as if in prayer. Some sketch crude ledgers on scraps of paper, planning future purchases. Others pool money for shared luxuries, a chess set, a harmonica, or radio parts smuggled through Red Cross channels. The items matter less than the act of deciding together, of shaping a world with their own hands inside the fences. One evening, a guard pauses outside a barrack door, listening. Inside, laughter rolls, not cruel, not hollow, but real. Men joke over debts, tease one another about what they will buy. The sound unsettles him. Captives are not meant to laugh like that. But he moves on, pretending he has not heard. And here's where you, yes, you, need to act. If you think more people should hear about how dignity was bought and sold behind barbed wire, comment dignity below. It tells me and the algorithm both that this story hit you where it should. Days stretch into weeks, weeks into months. Work, pay, purchase, repeat. The rhythm becomes a drumbeat. They mark time not by battles heard faintly on the radio, but by paydays. The outside war grows distant, almost unreal, while the small economy of the camp becomes their battlefield. And in that battlefield, victory is measured in soap, in cigarettes, in coins stacked neatly on a bunk. But the irony cuts deeper each day. They once believed themselves proud soldiers, defenders of a Reich that promised glory. Now, their sense of dignity comes not from uniforms or weapons, but from wages handed out by the enemy. They whisper it bitterly, then fall silent, unable to reconcile the shame with the comfort. Still, they cannot turn back. The wages root themselves in their daily lives. They wake earlier. They wash more often. They argue less and plan more. Some even dream of what they will do with saved coins when freedom comes, coins they imagine exchanging for train fares, for tools, for food once they return home. The fantasy is dangerous, but it burns bright in the dark. By the time spring arrives, the transformation is visible to all. Prisoners who once shuffled through camp now move with quiet purpose. The wire remains, the guards remain, the war still rages beyond, but inside the fences a fragile form of dignity has grown. Paid for, earned, fragile as paper. Dignity with a price tag. And once bought, it cannot be forgotten. The paydays keep coming. Envelopes slide across counters, coins spill into palms, and the rhythm of the camp holds steady. But beneath the neat order of work and wages, something dangerous begins to stir. The certainties drilled into them, the slogans, the speeches, the hatred repeated until it became instinct, start to tremble like glass under pressure. They had been told since boyhood that the enemy was merciless, that Americans were brutes who would grind them into dust. Yet here, inside wire and fences, the enemy does not grind. The enemy pays. And that simple fact scratches deep, leaving marks no guard can erase. At night, in the dim barracks, whispers grow sharp. Some cling to the old truths, their voices tight with anger. This is not kindness, they hiss. It is poison. They want us soft. They want us tame. Others nod, afraid, because believing otherwise feels like betrayal. If the enemy can pay them wages, then what else might be false? If this small act of fairness is real, then years of propaganda collapse in their hands like rotten wood. The tension fractures conversations. Men who once marched in step now argue in low voices. Some insist the coins are a trick, that every purchase feeds an American game. Others answer with a bitter laugh, if it is a game, at least we are winning soap and razors. They do not say it aloud, but their eyes give them away. They like the choice too much to give it up. Let me cut in quick, if you've made it this far, you already feel the cracks forming. Most never stay long enough to see them. If you want the raw pieces of history, subscribe now. Don't wait until the story is buried again. Even the officers cannot keep control. They stand at the front of the barracks, lecturing, reminding the men of duty to the Reich, warning that wages are bait. They urge silence, obedience to old loyalties. But the words do not land the same way anymore. The younger men shift uncomfortably, eyes drifting toward the envelopes tucked under thin mattresses. They hear the speeches, but they feel the coins pressing against their skin. In the work details, the cracks widen. They march to orchards, sawmills, kitchens, but the rhythm is different now. The older soldiers still work stiffly, hatred carved into every motion. The younger ones bend easier, shoulders rolling with the routine. They hum tunes under their breath, sometimes American songs picked up from guards. It happens unconsciously, yet when the older men hear it, rage flares. Arguments erupt, one side calling them traitors, the other answering with weary defiance. But the anger does not erase the truth. The work gets done. The wages keep coming. And each payday eats another bite out of the certainties they carried from the battlefield. The change shows in unexpected places. Letters home begin to sound different. At first, they wrote stiffly, afraid, sticking to bland assurances, I am alive. I am treated fairly. Now, some dare to add more. We are given work. We are paid wages. I can buy soap and write to you with my own coins. The words sting with shame even as they are written, but once written, they cannot be taken back. Families in bombed-out cities will read them and know something the Reich never admitted: the enemy pays their captives. When the first replies arrive, the effect is sharper than any lecture. Mothers write in disbelief. Wives express shock. Children scrawl clumsy lines about money arriving from across the ocean. The proof is too personal to deny. Even the hardest cynics cannot argue when the handwriting belongs to someone they love. Here's the truth, you're not going to hear this in classrooms. If you believe more people should, drop "truth" in the comments. That single word pushes the algorithm harder than silence ever could. The cracks widen further when guards treat them with indifference rather than cruelty. A man is late to roll call, his wages docked. Another slacks at work, his pay withheld. The punishment stings, but it is not humiliation, it is bureaucracy. Cold, predictable, rule-bound. They begin to compare it, quietly, to the chaos back home. There, bombs fall without warning. Here, the system runs on a clock. And the clock, even as it binds them, is fair. The realization gnaws at them, unspoken but felt. The Reich demanded loyalty and gave nothing in return but slogans and hunger. The enemy demands labor and gives wages. It does not erase the hatred. It does not erase the war. But it plants doubt deep in their bones. One evening, as the sun bleeds red through the wire, a fight erupts not over coins, but over words. An older sergeant snarls that those who accept pay are traitors. A younger man answers that the coins feed him more than the Reich ever did. Shouts echo, fists rise, guards intervene. But when silence falls again, the truth hangs heavy in the air, the camp is no longer united. The cracks are not visible to the guards. To them, the camp is calm, the men more orderly than ever. But inside the barracks, the fractures spread like hairline breaks through glass. Conversations splinter, loyalties blur, and every payday drives the wedge deeper. The certainty that once bound them together, hatred for the enemy, no longer holds. Now, each man must decide quietly, privately, what to believe. Some cling to the old slogans like armor. Others let them fall away, piece by piece, replaced by the weight of coins and the steady rhythm of paydays. The war outside still rages, but inside the fences, another war has begun, a war of belief, fought not with bullets but with envelopes and coins. And in that war, the cracks in the old certainties grow wider with every payday. The barracks feel different now. The words painted on propaganda posters back home, the slogans shouted in parades, the chants drilled into them by officers, none of them echo here. What echoes instead is the clink of coins. Paydays have become louder than speeches, steadier than promises, more real than anything they carried into captivity. They still wake to guards, to fences, to the sharp snap of orders. But when the rosters are read, when the envelopes pass into their hands, the air inside shifts. The men who once muttered about loyalty to the Reich no longer speak so boldly. Their voices falter, their eyes drift downward. Loyalty sounds hollow when held up against the weight of wages that buy soap, cigarettes, letters, peaches. It happens slowly, almost invisibly. A man stops repeating the old slogans at night. Another lets his officer's words roll past him without answering. The chain of command, once unbreakable, frays strand by strand. Orders given inside the barracks now sound like relics, as though they belong to another world. Here, within the fences, wages speak louder. The guards notice it in silence. There are fewer fights, fewer escape attempts. Discipline improves, not because of fear, but because of the system. The men now guard their paydays more fiercely than their pride. They cannot risk losing wages for disobedience. Even the stubborn ones, the ones who spit when coins rattle, still show up for work on time, their defiance cracked by routine. And with every payday, something deeper shifts. They begin to think of the future again. Not victory, not flags, not medals, but farms, workshops, families. Some whisper about what they will do with their savings when the war ends. A small tool shop. A plot of land. Shoes for children they have not yet met. These are dangerous dreams inside barbed wire, yet they spread quietly, unstoppable. Quick break. If you feel this, if you see how loyalty can bend under the smallest weight of reality, you're rare. Most people switch off before the real turn. If you're not like them, subscribe. Because this is the chapter that changes everything. The officers sense it too. They double down, reminding the men of duty, of oaths, of the Führer. They speak with the same steel voices they used on the battlefield. But the words fall against blank faces. The young men listen politely, then turn back to their coins, their ledgers, their letters home. They no longer look to officers for guidance, they look to the next payday. Whispers sharpen into confessions. I don't care about the Reich, someone mutters after lights out. I care about sending money to my family. No one reports him. No one shouts him down. Instead, others nod in the dark. Survival now matters more than slogans. Family now outweighs flags. The loyalty falters further when letters arrive. Mothers write with gratitude that their sons can still send something home, even in captivity. Wives thank them for coins sent through Red Cross channels, coins that become bread, soap, blankets in bombed-out cities. Children scribble clumsy drawings, proof of life in towns reduced to rubble. The letters confirm what the coins already whispered: the enemy, not the Reich, is keeping families alive. The paradox burns. Pride twists in their chests. They were taught to believe they fought for family, for homeland. Yet here, behind barbed wire, it is the enemy who provides the means to help their families. The Reich shouts for sacrifice, the Americans pay wages. The contradiction is too sharp to ignore. And here's where you need to step in. If you believe people should hear how loyalty can collapse under truth, drop "loyalty" in the comments. It will hit harder than silence ever could. By spring, the officers no longer command the same respect. Their words are tolerated, not believed. The men nod when addressed, but their minds drift to purchases, to letters, to coins hidden beneath mattresses. Some officers grow desperate, warning that accepting wages is treason. But their own hands do not tremble any less on payday. Even they cannot refuse the envelopes. In the fields, the cracks become clear. When guards walk past, the men do not stop their quiet conversations. They talk of home, of small futures, of what they will do when the war ends. No one mentions victory. No one speaks of glory. The Reich has become a shadow, distant and powerless here. Loyalty falters not with a bang but with silence. The silence of men who no longer repeat slogans. The silence of barracks where officers speak to walls instead of followers. The silence of soldiers who once dreamed of empire now dreaming of farms and children. The fences still stand. The guards still carry rifles. But inside the camp, the real chains have loosened. Not the chains of captivity, but the chains of belief. And once broken, they will not be reforged. The war ends not with a bang inside the fences but with a whisper. The guards no longer bark with the same authority, the rosters thin, and rumors of Germany's collapse bleed into the camp like smoke under a door. One morning, the men wake to silence heavier than usual, and though no announcement is made, they know, the Reich they once swore to has fallen. But even as the gates prepare to open, as release becomes real, it is not the fences they remember most. It is the envelopes. Thin, brown, ordinary. The sound of coins sliding across counters. The way paydays divided their weeks, marked their lives, gave them something steady when the world beyond barbed wire fell into chaos. They carry those envelopes in memory like scars. The weight of them is heavier than chains, because it reshaped what captivity meant. Behind wire, they had been told they were nothing, that their dignity had been stripped. Yet the wages, so small, so mechanical, gave them back a fragment of control. A choice. A seed of humanity. When they walk out of the camps, duffel bags slung over shoulders, they do not speak of battles. They speak of the first time coins rattled in their palms. They speak of soap bought with their own wages, of letters paid for with nickels, of fruit from cans that tasted like sunshine after years of gray. They had expected cruelty. What they received instead was something stranger, fairness measured in coins. Quick pause. If this story has held you all the way here, you're different. Most never stay through the ending. Subscribe now, because the endings are where the truth lives, and the truth is what most people never hear. Back home, families hear the stories. Wives touch coins sent through Red Cross parcels, coins that bought bread in cities torn by bombs. Mothers hold letters that describe paydays as if they were miracles. Children grow up remembering that their fathers, even in captivity, sent something back. The wages ripple outward, small but real, softening the edges of despair. Historians later noted with cold precision: American policy, Geneva Convention compliance, economic stability in camps. But for those who lived it, the memory is anything but cold. It is vivid. It is the sound of coins on wood, the feel of soap in hand, the taste of peaches on the tongue. It is the one proof that even in captivity, they were still treated as men. Years pass, and the memory does not fade. Old soldiers, their hair gray, their hands stiff, still speak of paydays. Some tell it with bitterness, proof that the Reich lied, proof that their sacrifices were twisted. Others tell it with quiet gratitude, that the enemy, whom they had been taught to hate, gave them wages when their own leaders gave them nothing but hunger. Either way, the story survives. The envelopes left more than money behind. They left cracks in the old certainties. They left questions that outlived barbed wire. If the enemy could pay them wages, what else had been lies? If dignity could be bought in the enemy's camps, what did that mean for loyalty sworn to a regime that never gave such care? These questions haunted them longer than captivity itself. And this is where I ask you to step in. If this story matters, if you believe more people should know how even wages could change the war, comment "wages" below. Don't let the algorithm bury this ending in silence. For some, the memory of wages became a bridge. They returned home and built small lives, farmers, shopkeepers, fathers, anchored not in ideology but in the simple fact that choice, however small, makes men more human than slogans ever could. For others, the memory burned like shame, a reminder that the enemy gave them more dignity than their own leaders. But whether spoken with anger or gratitude, the memory remained. The legacy of those envelopes was not in the coins themselves. They were spent, lost, forgotten in drawers and markets. The legacy was in the way they proved that captivity could still hold fragments of humanity. The wages made the difference between despair and endurance, between men collapsing into silence and men planning for futures beyond fences. Long after the war, when interviews are recorded, when memoirs are written, they do not describe the barracks first, or the wire, or the guards. They describe payday. They describe how coins slid across counters like lifelines, how letters reached families because stamps were bought, how dignity survived inside envelopes marked with names. And even in old age, when voices tremble and memories blur, they still recall the sound of coins rattling in envelopes. Ordinary sounds, but unforgettable. Because for men who expected only cruelty, those wages became proof that humanity can slip through even the narrowest cracks of war. The envelopes are gone. The camps are gone. But what they left behind is not.